mission of the American Heart Association is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. We work to improve the lives of all Americans every day, but we cannot achieve that goal until we address the issues in inequality in healthcare. Drs. Watkins and Saunders pioneered this work not only in Baltimore but nationwide. It was our privilege at the American Heart Association to work alongside them in their efforts, so it's only fitting that we created this award to honor their work.
I first met Dr. Watkins before I came to medical school here in Baltimore. A remarkable man who has done a tremendous amount for African American advancement in academic medicine in this town and in this country. He was the first surgeon to ever implant a defibrillator in a human being, a phenomenal achievement. And he taught us that before we do anything else, we must first be excellent as physicians, excellent as scientists, as researchers, and excellent as teachers.
Eli was someone who was always thinking outside the box, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. In the 70s, Eli was realizing as a cardiologist that a lot of his patients were dying of hypertension-related diseases. He would look at the research and he would see that there were not any people of color being used in the research process. And he stopped and he said, how many people in the African American community have high blood pressure? Well, the answer is a very large number. Why are these new medications not being evaluated with the patients who are going to use them? And he and Dr. Watkins, they used their influence and were able to make a difference. And because of that, people of color, it is mandated that they are to be included in the research process.
To have this honor named for a man like Levi Watkins is entirely appropriate. He was involved with the American Heart Association, and he was also involved with bringing people of color into the community of academic medicine.
Eli was there from the very beginning. He was always very proud of the American Heart Association for having grown to be the entity it is today and to have his name carried forward with Levi's. He was very proud of it, and as a family, to see that his hard work and what he has done for his local community, for Baltimore, Maryland, but also, nationally, we're very pleased.
This award appropriately celebrates people like Elijah Saunders and people like Levi Watkins because their courage is what moves us forward in our effort. We recognize them for the gift that they gave us with their lives and their careers and their courage. And by celebrating their efforts, we end up encouraging others who follow them to continue that effort.
This award honors not only their legacy, but also the work that still needs to be done to address health disparities in this community and all across the country. The Watkins-Saunders Award was created to champion the work not only of Drs. Watkins and Saunders, but also to those who continue to do their work in the community to address those health disparities that still exist and to continue with the mission of the American Heart Association.
If you had to use one word to describe Dr. Wilson, what would it be?
Dr. Wilson is a trailblazer.
Magnificent.
Commanding.
Tenacious.
I would describe him as inspirational.
He is distinguished.
I think visionary is the word I would use for him.
I'll give you two words: honesty and integrity.
I want to say excellence.
I almost want to say beautiful. I was a beautiful man.
My one word would indeed be icon.
I got sick one day. I think I was 8 years old, maybe 9. I got sick. Doctor came to the house, gave me an injection. I got better. I was impressed. I said, this is great. I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. Simple as that. And I never changed my mind. I decided I was going to be a doctor. As I thought more and more about this, I noticed that in my little town, well, not all that little, of Worcester, Massachusetts, there was only one doctor of color in the town. So I realized even then we had a deficiency of representation in terms of who you could go see. Not that white doctors wouldn't see you, but if you were more comfortable going to a person of color, you only had one choice in all of Worcester, Massachusetts. So I never changed from that age about becoming a doctor. And here I am.
I think his legacy is the excellence that he brought to the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
In early 90s, Dr. Wilson was at the time the first minority dean of a majority institution in the United States. And throughout the next several years, maybe almost 2 decades, he maintained a distinguished, highly visible, and highly successful profile that really has stood the test of time. It was a visible and I would say visible and iconic profile that was very much recognized across the country. Not only based on his leadership role, but based on the successes and the advancement he was making, as I said, in academic scholarship and diversity excellence.
University of Maryland, I saw as a huge diamond that had not been appropriately polished or cut and was just waiting for somebody to make people understand that by polishing this diamond, you could change this into a very front runner type medical school.
Through his deanship, he was able to advance the status of that medical school well beyond what it was when he joined it, and take it forward, and was able to again advance the careers of minority physicians and minority faculty, and make it a more diverse institution, both in its student body and in its faculty. And he left that institution much better off and much far advanced than when he joined it.
He is such a visionary. He envisioned University of Maryland being in the top 10, 15, 25 med schools in the country. And he certainly achieved that and more.
You know, this area, Baltimore, Maryland, is blessed by having two very good medical schools. Hopkins is outstanding. But when I was coming here as dean, there was a grant that the dean's office wanted to apply for, a federal grant. And I said, go ahead and do it. Write up a draft and send it to me to New York, and I'll review it. And a month went by and I got nothing. So I called up the assistant dean. I said, where is it? He said, well, I don't think we should apply. And I said, why? He said, because Hopkins is applying. I said, so what? He said, they're not going to give it to two schools in the same city. I said, well, so what? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. He said, well, if Hopkins applies, we don't get it. Why don't we just become a subsection and work for Hopkins on this grant? I said, that's a great idea. Why don't you go work for Hopkins now? Because unless you have that grant on my desk for me to review within a week, you're going to be looking for a job. Make a long story short, we got the grant. Hopkins didn't. But that was the first time somebody had thought about, are we of any value other than just being okay. We're not Hopkins. We don't have the depth. We don't have a lot of things that Hopkins has. But we work very closely with Hopkins, not only on some training programs, but also on research ventures. So that was one of the things I wanted to happen in Maryland, and it has happened. So it's sort of a twofer. You got great research increase, got a great increase in diversity, and I think the two are connected. And I think we got one because we got the other.
So coming to University of Maryland with a strong research compass was a gift to University of Maryland and fortunate for University of Maryland, but it also gave so many of us the necessary North Star for us to achieve that goal.
What he did for the School of Medicine and the elevation in stature, research, reputation was enormous. He took the School of Medicine at the University of Maryland to another level.
When I took over after him, I could see his fingerprints all over.
Maryland went from the 4th quintile in external research funding when I arrived in 1991 to the top quintile when I retired in 2006. And it's still doing extraordinarily well.
Having been here at Maryland for the past 16 years, and I've reviewed the history, I can realize that the school has been through phases. And in all honesty, that 15-year period that Dr. Wilson served as dean, overseeing the entire portfolio, it was really based on clearly a vision of emphasizing excellence and growth and scholarship.
Under his guidance, school made magnificent strides in every measure, in research funding and clinical productivity and the quality of the medical students and the curriculum. And all of that, I think, is directly related to his way of doing business. He inspired people to do good, to do well. And 100 years from now, we will still be feeling the effect of what he brought to the University of Maryland.
When I grew up in medicine, I never saw a Black professor, never. So I didn't have any role models in my medical school to make me do anything. When I went to Harvard College, my class size was 1,172 people, men. They didn't have women at the time. Out of that huge number, there were seven African Americans. And actually, one of the African Americans was actually African. That number is basically non-existent. So you have to do things that's improved, obviously, dramatically. But you've got to open the doors to people who can contribute and give them an opportunity to participate in the enormous educational activities that we have in this country. Don't keep them out, give them an opportunity. Let them contribute to education.
He always was aware that the plight of African Americans in healthcare and in medical education was difficult, and that whatever he might be able to do to ease that journey or to make it more successful, he would do. And he was obsessed actually with the need to advance the careers of African American physicians, all the underrepresented minorities, to be represented in medical institutions and as faculty members, as administrators, as deans, and so forth. And he has been unrelenting in his drive, to do that. Even now, we're both in our 80s, and he's just as enthusiastic and just as energetic in that regard, and just as driven.
We certainly have seen the fact that the numbers of Black physicians and people in medicine is small, and those disparities are borne out in the healthcare disparities we see today. And this has always been something that's been important to me. And we talked about that issue in particular when we talked many years ago, Dr. Wilson and I. And it certainly was something that I faced. In my own life, I was the first Black neurosurgical resident to train at Washu in St. Louis. And that was an unfortunate milestone. As I trained from about 2001 to 2007. So even as late as that, we were still having firsts. And there have been changes, but maybe not quite enough. And so I think he has always been, even before it was kind of in the news and in fashion, he's always been interested in training Black professionals, in building an excellent pipeline of folks who can participate in medicine.
I found him to be, somebody who, made time to talk to me and to mentor me about my career and promotion, and had ideas about what success looked like.
I had to recruit a new chair of ophthalmology fairly early in my time at Maryland. The person I recruited was an African-American female. Now, in one fell swoop, I recruited the first female to head an academic department in the medical school in the United States, and the first African-American. But she wasn't the only African-American that was recruited to head up departments, or the first female that was recruited to head up departments. And what we really did was to open the door and try to level the playing field and judge people for what we thought they could do and would do in terms of running the programs that we wanted them to run.
So at the time, there were no university-based departments of ophthalmology with a woman leading it. And so this was an aspiration I never really had. And so as I left my home in Ann Arbor, where I was on faculty at University of Michigan, an assistant dean there, as well as pretty well rooted in my own research, I came to Maryland thinking, I don't know if this is going to be the right move. But once I met Dean Wilson, I knew this was the right thing to do, because he told me, here you can lead, but any place else, they may just tolerate you, but here at the University of Maryland, you will lead.
Honestly, I was very fortunate. The Department of Family Medicine, where I trained and spent 25 years of my career, was a very diverse department, although the medical school as a whole, it wasn't. And, Dean Wilson was the first minority dean of a majority institution. And so I think that was that opinion that I was surrounded by people who kind of looked like me, who grew up like me, and I was very fortunate. And what he did is he added to that circle. He got me involved in committees where I could help with diversity, inclusion, and equity on our campus. And even now, I'm a member of the AAMP, which is an association that he found for minority academic physicians. And so I think he took it upon himself to identify people of color and put them in leadership positions. And so there'll be more of us in those positions.
36 years ago, I was one of 6 people who founded an organization called the Association for academic minority physicians. And one of our missions was to do what we could to help increase the number of underrepresented minorities in medicine, in academic medicine, biomedical research, and in administrative medicine and decision-making. And one of the ways we attempted to do that was to get people who were in significant positions, have them make themselves available as role models to students and trainees and junior faculty, have annual meetings to allow these people to come and attend, and encourage people to reach for future things that they never would have reached for before.
He would say to me when we were working on, for example, some of these mentoring programs, and he would say, well, you know, what's the possibility that this person will become an RO unfunded investigator? And obviously it's based on what do they bring to the table, but also what is their commitment. And he's always emphasizing, what is your personal commitment? He wants to make sure people understand that getting rewarded for excellence in academic medicine, you know, it seems cliche, but you do kind of get, you know, you get out what you put into it. But sometimes you put a lot in and you don't get as much out. And that's where the guidance, the mentorship, the sponsorship comes in. And he's always willing to do that part, provided, you know, you are coming to the table with your own A game, knowing that he's working hard to pull you, you know, to open the doors that he can for you. So yes, I believe he is extraordinarily committed to what I call inclusive excellence now. That's the term we use now to say that there are many diverse individuals, diversity, however we define it, but clearly diversity that brings excellence in endeavors. And he is really passionate about that.
As a dean, you deal with problems all the time. Everyone wants more money, they want more downtime, you know, they want to go on sabbatical, they want to develop this center and that center. And so he is like, why do I have all the answers? If you're going to lead, you need to come with a list of what the potential problems should be and how you're going to overcome them. And what he does is he puts you in the right place and introduces you to the right people to help you fulfill those dreams and those goals. So, you know, I think it quite annoys him if you come with a list of problems and sit there and wait for him to solve them all. He'll, you know, shoo you away and say, you know, go figure it out yourself and come back to me, because that's what leadership is.
He recognized that that everybody has a contribution to make, and everybody had I guess a future that could be better and more successful. And so the appreciation for what he was able to do there was equally spread, you know, among all the faculty that he treated fairly and equally. And I think it's that process itself that made it possible for him to be successful at advancing his underrepresented minorities as well.
We invited Dr. Wilson to give a lecture on the pursuit of health equity at LSU. And I will tell you, first of all, it was standing room only. We had to have an overflow where other people could look at the lecture through other venues. And at the end of his lecture, he got a standing ovation at LSU, which I have never seen anybody get a standing ovation in almost any grand rounds that I participated in. And this is my almost my 37th year. So it was quite remarkable. And Don really, to this day, is remembered in such a formative way at LSU. There had never been anybody of his stature to give a talk, which was, to some people, was quite uncomfortable about the pursuit of health equity. And he was so formidable in his talk that I think he won many, many people over who may have not been as informed on this issue as they should have been at LSU.
This is something that has really come to the fore in recent years. But for those of us who have been kind of living the struggle, this has been something that's been an issue for generations. Certainly, you know, my father's generation, Dr. Wilson's generation, they were faced with all kinds of issues with discrimination and racial injustice as they moved within medicine and academics.
Racism is real, but race is not. So certainly it's an artificial categorization, but it does represent a significant level of social political contributors to our health. And so that's the message. And so what people who don't understand that deeper understanding about, as well as the history of how race became our categorization path, is you can't just judge a patient's ancestry based on the color of their skin, because so many of us have so many different ancestries, and it's not based on the color of our skin, but really our ancestry.
Dr. Wilson is a pioneer in working as institutions in increasing the diversity. During the time that I was at the University of Maryland and he was there, the minority student population of coming into the University of Maryland for medical school increased. And with that, you know, we were in what we consider West Baltimore, where there was lots of crime, lots of people who didn't have adequate health care. And he made it his purpose for us to be out in the community and really establish things like population health, to really go into the communities and help those people. And so one of the things that I was involved with is we had a partnership with the School of Social Work. And we worked in the elementary schools in West Baltimore and talked about nutrition and exercise, and really, you know, gave the kids there an opportunity to learn about their bodies and things like that. Those things, you know, paid strong dividends, because when we can bring those patients into the university, they really help diversify the patient population and those careers. And I think that when students and residents come to interview at University of Maryland, anybody who comes sees someone who looks like them. And I think that was purposefully done by Dr. Wilson, and we increased that. I know that, you know, research grants and awards went up because of his work there. We have more buildings on campus because of his work there, and leaders like Dr. Gallo and those people came because he was there. And so I think that one of his main purposes was to decentralize and make the community opened up into the School of Medicine and to be able to operate effectively.
I never told people I wanted to increase diversity. They made the assumption, which was an accurate assumption, that I would do so, that I wanted to do so. They made it for the wrong reason. Their assumption was I'd want to increase diversity because of my color, not because I thought it was a great idea. But the assumption was correct at any rate. And as a result, we started getting more students of color who were interested in the University of Maryland. And quite frankly, one of the reasons they became more interested because of my being at Maryland as a role model, and they assumed that my being at Maryland would make it a friendlier place. When we were searching for program directors and new chairs, and departmental chairs were searching for new faculty, they assumed that I would be interested in seeing them try to recruit minority candidates, and I would be interested in recruiting them. And that is true. It was true not just in terms of race and ethnicity, but also gender, because we significantly increased the number of women chairs and program directors at the school, of people of color at the school, and not just with chairs, but in terms of the associate deanships. But one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that folks understood their value at Maryland. I didn't come to Maryland to increase diversity. I came to Maryland to improve the medical school. I believe that you can't reach the best possibilities unless you have a diverse group of people working with you and advising you. So increasing diversity is going to help the medical school no matter what happened. And you know, as a result, if you ask people today, what did Wilson do at the medical school? They'll say he improved diversity. And that's absolutely true. It's also a bit of structural racism, because what increased more than diversity was the research at the medical school. Diversity increased the faculty about almost fourfold. Research increased almost fivefold in the medical school. And one of the things I wanted people to understand is what they were worth and their value.
You know, I think one of the greatest parts of his legacy has been the diversity dinner that he started, and the scholarship that went along with that started in 2016. And I was thrilled to see that come about, because it really demonstrates a real commitment, you know, not just paying lip service to increasing the pipeline of underrepresented groups in academics. It is really doing the work to make sure that happens. And often that is, you know, finances is a big part of that. And that scholarship, I think, really, you know, says it all to me as far as a commitment to what we need to do to get people to continue to get underrepresented groups an opportunity to go to medical school, and then to expose them to academics and where they can touch others.
I think Dr. Wilson's legacy has to be in the contribution he has made to academic scholarship and diversity. What I mean by that is he has demonstrated the importance and the results of a focused, persevering attention to academic scholarship at the highest level, intermixed with diversity. I always have like the term called diversity with excellence. And I think that he was able to demonstrate, I think, just that. Academic, scholarship, and diversity with excellence.
Dr. Wilson's legacy is excellence in academic medicine for all of us. He is the exemplar of being able to marry outstanding research, compassionate patient care, and the highest quality education to a diverse student body for a diverse country. I think that's his legacy. He was one of the trailblazers that really helped us to even envision that path. Nowadays, we have many other examples where you have people of color that have the highest leadership roles in academic medical centers. So that's his legacy, and we are his legacy.
I'm proud on a personal basis of having the opportunity to become the first African-American dean of a non-minority medical school. I'm proud to have headed up some of the organizations involved in medical education and headed committees that deal with healthcare and research over the years. A lot of people recognize me as being someone who has helped diversity occur in medicine, and I'm proud of that.
He was just a beautiful person. He has a very commanding personality, a very engaging intellect, humorous.
Don was very honest with you and his perceptions of your performance. And I think he was honest in any dealings he had with any of the other chairs, any other leadership at the university. He really, integrity was a major aspect. It's of Don Wilson, and people saw that. You believed what he said, and he was very transparent. But everything that he did, integrity was laced through what he did. And then again, he demanded excellence of everyone. Not easy at times, but he demanded excellence. And that was what really, I think, separated him at times from some of the other leaders that we had. It was uncomfortable, but excellence was his motto. And that's what I've tried to do in any of the positions that I've had in my career, demand excellence.
He's a trailblazer that has opened up paths that many of us could only dream of. You know, certainly in my own case, I probably would never have been a department chair. I never would have gone past perhaps being a professor in ophthalmology if it had not been for Dr. Wilson. So he's a trailblazer, and he inspires so many of us to blaze trails in our own discipline.
You know, he was ahead of his time in terms of some of his work on race and racial justice within medicine. But on a larger note, in a larger way, he was a visionary in terms of how he led programs and departments in his ideas and his forward thinkingness. Certainly at the University of Maryland, he led to amazing growth in terms of research and patient care. And that is something that stemmed from his really kind of heartfelt mission that we can, deliver excellent care, and that, all people deserve excellent care. And so that really informed all of his work. And so that idea, strangely enough, is somewhat novel, because if you have that idea and you actually work hard to live and practice that idea, you see things that are unusual. Many times, unfortunately, in medicine, we're faced with too many practical eventualities that may, in some cases, overshadow that vision. But for him, I think he kept the vision crystal clear, and I think that he inspired that vision in all the people who worked with him and for him, and he was able to build great teams because of that.
He's inspired a whole team of students, colleagues, faculty to get out into the community, to broaden our perspectives, to continue to learn and to educate others.
To me, he has always been larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
He is a presence, at least as much as he is a person. And his level of accomplishment is the standard by which we all should judge our accomplishments.
This man knows a tremendous amount of people. Here he is at, I think he's 84 years old, and you're honoring him with this award. He's not even still practicing. He's 12 to 13 years from retirement because he's still working. He's still doing things at the grand level. He's still being called by current deans and current chairs for advice. Typically, when you're out to pasture, when you retire, people don't think of you that much anymore. People think of Donald E. Wilson. He is distinguished. They call him for advice. I sit there and I hear it at times. He's always now, since COVID, on a Zoom call. And if it wasn't COVID, he'd be on an airplane. He is still very much involved in all of his activities. He may not be going into the office every day, but he's still around, people know who he is.
He is essentially unwavering in terms of what it takes to get an excellent product. And I mentioned earlier that some of that involves his own input. He will put in the work. He has always done that with me and any of the projects that I come up with. And that excellence, I think, is what continues to drive him now, where he's putting in all this time. Even, he's emeritus, right? He's emeritus, and yet he runs this organization, and he's emeritus. And every time he's doing that, he would say to me, we need to get more students, we need to get more fellows, we need to get more residents involved, we need to get more junior faculty. And that's his driver, and always thinking about the next generation of leaders.
Many people, I guess, were started on that path, ideally, that he's been on, for all his life. But as time goes by, other distractions come along, or one direction takes over that takes you away from that initial goal. But Don has not been like that. The tenacity with which he has pursued, I guess, advancement of underrepresented minorities, increasing the numbers of underrepresented minorities, and their, as well as their success, in the field, has been something that's been consistent and prevalent, from, I guess, their 70s, early 70s till now. And whenever we talk to him, and when we meet, especially in our AAMP meetings, this is always the theme. This is always the guiding principle. And he makes sure that everybody else around appreciates that and works towards it.
He would just say, I'm amazed at how long we've been trying to do this and we still have these inequities. And I think that's probably what continues to drive him to say, how do we get there at the end of the day? And that's where, that excellence comes in, and his willingness to put in the time and really model for other leaders to follow. Because he's not a leader who just delegates and says, you go do this and you go do that. He rolls up his sleeves. He works with us. And I'm, again, grateful for that.
Levi Saunders, we go back a long time, just knowing each other, because we would, he was in internal medicine, I was in internal medicine. So we would go to the National Medical Association meetings, and I would see him. And there would be other meetings that we would go to. I would see him. Sometimes he was speaking. Sometimes I was speaking. So we were friends from that perspective. And we also had an interest in improving the health of Black people in general, because we knew it wasn't what it should be. And Eli was doing so from a clinical perspective, and actually got involved in taking some of his screening activities and mentoring activities right into the community to get people more engaged in looking after their health. And I was more engaged in the academic and administrative approach of doing this. But Eli also became a member of this Association for Academic Minority Physicians. He was a very important member, came to all of our meetings, spoke at the meetings. So he and I were just good friends. And he was going in his direction more clinically, and I was going in my direction more administratively and more nationally, if you will, as opposed to the community per se. And I've known Professor Watkins for years, and we never really worked together, but we would see each other socially. And we never had a social event where we didn't talk about the problems in medicine and what we were doing to help solve them. And he was a no-nonsense man. You could count on him to tell you the truth. And you could count on him to do the right thing if given the opportunity to do so. So in that sense, I knew them both very well and for a long period of time. And we were each going, if you take a spoke of a wheel, we were each on a different spoke, but the whole wheel was going in the same direction.
You know, I was very honored to have a role in picking him for this award. And I think one of the things that I think is so important about this award and picking him for this award is that it really gives us a chance to shine the light on his life and legacy, and will then hopefully help others to become aware of his life and legacy. And, you know, and in that way he can be a role model to many, many others, you know, in our region and across the country. You know, it is unfortunately too common that we don't start to honor folks like him until they are gone and part of history. I think we really have a fantastic opportunity now to honor someone who has exemplified all these attributes of greatness, you know, while they're still here to talk about it.
Well, I really can't think of anyone more deserving of an award than Don. And I think, as I mentioned, it gave me an opportunity not only to express my appreciation for him directly, but also to recognize how much of a positive influence Don has had, not only on academic medicine, but on the AAMC and particularly on the profession and on the society at large. He's just been a very influential figure in 20th and 21st century medicine.
Dr. Wilson is so well deserving of this award, and it's long overdue. This recognition is really important, not only to Dr. Wilson, but for all of us, because he has been such a role model. And this is a way for us to come together as a community to celebrate him at this time. So he has inspired so many of us. He has mentored all of us. He has sponsored many of us. And he has made a difference in the House of Medicine and beyond. So for so many reasons, he's well deserving of this award.
We need more leaders like Dr. Wilson, people who may have emeritus behind their name, which of course means they have been there, done that. He has done everything, and yet is willing to continue to give to the next generation, to bridge us getting to inclusive excellence.
In 2012, the American Heart Association of Baltimore and Greater Maryland established the Watkins-Saunders Award in honor of the work of Dr. Levi Watkins and Dr. Elijah Saunders. Each year, we are pleased to present this award to someone from our community who has shown an outstanding and exemplary commitment to the work of health equity for Baltimore and Greater Maryland. This year, we are pleased to present this award to Dr. Donald E. Wilson.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, truly on behalf of the volunteers, the supporters, and the leadership of the American Heart Association, it is an honor to present you with this award.
Well, it's an honor to receive it. Of course, I knew both of these fine physicians before I came to Baltimore 30 years ago. So I knew about their work. And of course, Dr. Saunders became one of my faculty members. And in fact, he played a really critical role in getting me to come here to be dean of the University of Maryland School of Medicine. But that's another story for another time. This is quite an honor.
Well,
thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We're honored to have had you leading the University of Maryland and to accept this award. Thank you.
it's a great honor because it goes beyond the discipline of heart disease and strokes. And it talks about an issue that is universal in healthcare in our country right now. And that's the issue of health disparities, which in part is due to the lack of diversity of the healthcare providers and the decision makers, the healthcare decision makers in our country today. And so this, as I say, it's a great honor for me and totally, totally unexpected.